Talking about Hamas and being tough on terrorists, Donald Trump has today issued a stark warning to the terrorists holding hostages. I'm going to read from this part of the post that he shared on Truth. He said, "Please let this truth serve to represent that if the hostages are not released prior to January 2025, the date that I proudly assume office as President of the United States, there will be all hell to pay in the Middle East and for those in charge who have perpetrated these atrocities against humanity. Those responsible will be hit harder than anybody has been hit in the long and storied history of the United States of America. Release the hostages now," in capitals, Josh. We haven't seen this sort of strength or clarity from the Biden administration, certainly. This is pure Trump. This is Trump's peace through strength strategy.
Look, I mean, it's an amazing statement. I mean, it's truly an amazing statement. One of the funny things about Donald Trump is that he barely even has to act. I mean, as soon as he was elected by the American people, basically the entire Middle East map already started to change effectively overnight. Hezbollah started begging for a ceasefire. Hamas started begging for a ceasefire. Iran said that it was going to tone down its assaults across the entire region there. I mean, basically just the mere presence of this man, the guy who achieved historical peace in the Middle East his first time around, the guy who took out Qasem Soleimani at the Baghdad, Iraq airport in January 2020 there. I mean, the mere fact that he is there, let alone putting out amazing statements like this, has already changed the entire dynamic of the region there. Look, the point is, people think that Donald Trump is like a warmonger, that he's looking to start wars. The Middle East was the quietest it has been in decades during his presidency because, again, our enemies here in America know not to mess with us when Donald Trump is in office. The one thing I will say is that if you're going to talk like this, as Donald Trump has done on Truth Social, you better be prepared to back it up with action. Having said that, though, I think Donald Trump is very clearly willing to do that, as he's demonstrated before there. So our enemies are now on standby. They are watching this with very close eyes there, and that is a very good thing, I say.
I remember when he was, I think it was the fourth or fifth presidential candidate who said he was going to move the embassy. He was going to move the American embassy and he was going to acknowledge Israel's capital. And there was a promise that was made previously, Josh. I think Clinton made it, Obama made it, Bush made it. None of them followed through. They were all too terrified. Donald Trump followed through despite the hyperbole and the hysteria that we got from the media and experts telling us it was going to lead to bloodshed and relations were going to sour. And what happened? Nothing really happened. They dealt with it because he followed through with a pledge. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I want to ask you about Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg. He's met with Trump and there are rumours that he wants to cozy up to the administration. He wants to be brought into the fold and be involved in the national reform and renewal. But should this character be trusted, Josh? Meta, Instagram, Facebook have been notorious for suppressing, censoring conservatives. They continue to do so. And he donated hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money to help fortify the 2020 election. Is he a character who has proven himself, who's shown that he has changed his mind about politics like Elon Musk has and RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and some others?
I would not trust Mark Zuckerberg personally at all. I mean, to put it mildly there, but he's on this current long extended mea culpa apology tour. It's very odd, actually. I mean, this started really over the summer. He put out some statement acknowledging that Facebook was complicit in censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story from the New York Post back in 2020. And he said that he apologized for that. So he's been on this extended apology tour for a while now. I can't quite figure out exactly why he is doing this, though, to be honest with you. I find it very difficult to believe that his actual politics and principles and ideology have changed. Rather, it's probably just a self-serving measure when it comes to just trying to keep his company relevant. He probably sees his fellow Silicon Valley titan, Elon Musk, who is now in Mar-a-Lago. He's taking photos with Don Jr. and Eric Trump. He's basically, I mean, Elon Musk is basically an adopted son of the Trump family at this point. And there's probably a little bit of just envy or jealousy, frankly, from Mark Zuckerberg, from one billionaire to another there. If I had to put on my psychological lens, that's probably what I imagine what is going on here. But look, look, I mean, from one Jew to another, from me to Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg actually had his bar mitzvah in the synagogue in my hometown back in New York there. So I would encourage him to spend a little more time doing what we call teshuvah, which is atonement in Judaism, prior to trying to get in Donald Trump's good graces. I think a little more atonement might be in order for your previous mistakes, frankly.
I tell you, I'm with you. I would not trust him as far as I can throw him. And if he actually really has genuinely changed his point of view and woken up to some of the awful activism that he's been party to, then you would think he would tackle that on his own websites, on his own sites, Instagram and Facebook, which are still routinely censoring anything that's right of left. I mean, even centrists are finding themselves getting censored or suppressed there. Before you go, we've got some good news. I've got conservative commentator Scott Jennings being added to the editorial board of the LA Times, a publication that has been left to far left for a long time. Is this going to have make any meaningful change though, Josh, or is this just a token conservative who's been added so they can pretend to be balanced?
So the LA Times, it's worth giving some credit where credit is due. The LA Times was one of the major publications that ultimately refused to endorse in the 2024 election, along with the Washington Post and USA Today. Those are really the big three liberal papers which refused to endorse Kamala Harris or Donald Trump in this election. So the fact that they refused to endorse and now they're bringing in Scott Jennings is definitely a propitious sign for the future there. But ultimately, the devil will be in the details there. I want to see what his columns look like. I want to see those voices actually represented on the editorial boards, in-house editorials. I actually published one op-ed myself at the LA Times about 4.5 years ago now. I haven't bothered to try again. It's been a very long time since that was a hospitable place to publish conservative commentary. So I guess, the proof will ultimately be here in the pudding.
Look, Josh, I differ with you on that point. I don't give them credit for not endorsing Kamala, and same with the Washington Post, because they run nothing but pro-Kamala, anti-Trump material 24/7, and then they don't endorse, pretending that means they're balanced or they're not committed to one side, when we all know where their politics and their agenda runs. So we'll be watching and seeing if Scott Jennings has an impact at the LA Times. Josh Hammer, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.